Hey listeners, Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a quick moment to tell you about another show on our podcast network that I know you'll love. In Your Element, hosted by Brendan Henkel and Daniela Norden, is a podcast bridging the gap between leadership and real talk in the dynamic world of higher ed. Every episode is a deep dive into the practical side of working in higher ed, featuring real-world tips, best practices, and use cases from Element 451 users. Join our hosts as they bring on savvy IT leaders, visionary college presidents, and leading voices in the field to share their experiences and insights. From the challenges to the triumphs of higher ed, In Your Element is your source for candid discussions, innovative strategies, and the impactful use of technology, especially AI, in personalizing the student journey. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or by searching for In Your Element wherever you get your podcasts.
Of course, the National College Attainment Network has a number of institutional partners, but the data that they're sourcing is from the Department of Ed. So as the DOE releases new data related to the FAFSA and starts pushing that out to their institutions, they also release it in aggregate form, and that is what the NCAN has put together into this dashboard. So again, a lot of really interesting breakdowns, and I wanted to start to get into that and highlight this dashboard as a way of, one, just monitoring the problem, understanding its scale, but also looking at a really cool example of taking public data and making it into a more consumable format so that everyone in higher education can benefit from it. I really appreciate the work of the NCAN and Mr. DeBon and his team that have put this out. It's been really incredible. So let's have a look at it. You ready?
Yeah, I think this is great, like you said, for everybody to spend some time looking at. If nothing else, it lets you know that, hey, I'm not alone. Everybody is struggling with this. And a lot of these year-over-year numbers point that out pretty clearly.
Welcome to the EduData Podcast, a podcast that serves as your weekly guide to the data driving higher education. We are your hosts. I'm Jamie Boggs.
And I'm Timothy Davis. Join us every Friday for weekly breakdowns of the most important data, trends, and topics in higher education.
The EduData Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the EduData Podcast. I'm Timothy Davis here with my co-host and friend, Mr. Jamie Boggs. Hey, Jamie, how's it going today?
I love that you called me a friend. I'm doing really well, Timothy. It's good to see you and be back in here talking some numbers.
That's right, and we are friends. That's true. That's not just for the show. We confirmed. Friends confirmed.
Confirmed.
Absolutely. So today
it.
We're going to be talking about this issue that's kind of been flying under the radar. No one's really heard of it, but there's this thing called the FAFSA. Jamie, I don't know if you're aware of it. Yeah. Unfortunately, the FAFSA has had a lot of issues this year with a redesign of the FAFSA portal that students use being delayed substantially, as well as a redesign and restructure of how aid is calculated, need is calculated. So a lot of changes that were supposed to happen and be ready for this upcoming fall academic year, just not ready, been extremely delayed. The release of data to institutions so that they can get their aid letters out has been extremely delayed, and it has created a huge problem that people are still trying to get their heads around the scale of and even sort of predict the fallout from. Have you seen anybody in your professional network being affected by this?
Yeah, I thought the problem you were going to bring up was everybody calling it the FAFSA instead of the FAFSA, but we'll
also
move on.
A critical issue.
Move on past that. Yeah, all of my admissions friends and folks that work with high school students applying for colleges and working on those things, everybody is just kind of flying by the seat of their pants because it's wait and see a lot of the time and then scramble to make it happen. So a lot of people
Right.
in frantic times.
Right. I know at Element we've had just about every partner sending out FAFSA update campaigns and emails and messages to their students, and making sure that that information is at the forefront of their engagement efforts so that students are up to speed and understand kind of the situation. But today, from a data perspective, we're going to talk about this amazing dashboard that's been published and put together by the National College Attainment Network and their data team led by Bill DeBon. And the dashboard that they put out that really puts some numbers and some scale to the scope of this problem. Of course, the National College Attainment Network has a number of institutional partners, but the data that they're sourcing is from the Department of Ed. So as the DOE releases new data related to the FAFSA and starts pushing that out to their institutions, they also release it in aggregate form, and that is what the NCAN has put together into this dashboard. So again, a lot of really interesting breakdowns, and I wanted to start to get into that and highlight this dashboard as a way of, one, just monitoring the problem, understanding its scale, but also looking at a really cool example of taking public data and making it into a more consumable format so that everyone in higher education can benefit from it. I really appreciate the work of the NCAN and Mr. DeBon and his team that have put this out. It's been really incredible. So let's have a look at it. You ready?
Yeah, I think this is great, like you said, for everybody to spend some time looking at. If nothing else, it lets you know that, hey, I'm not alone. Everybody is struggling with this. And a lot of these year-over-year numbers point that out pretty clearly.
Absolutely. And kind of the headline number here is that FAFSA completions are down about 40% through the end of March. And that's looking at a year-over-year comparison. And just pulling up, it might be helpful if you're listening to us right now and you're near a computer to pull up this dashboard, which should be in our show notes, and just have a look at this. The visual here is really staggering, looking at the prior year and then seeing the completion rate and the change there. I'm looking at just the homepage here, and you see the class of 23 completion percentage, starting way back in January and just going up and up and up. And then you see the current year, and it doesn't even start until the beginning of April. The graph is so lopsided and is just so incredibly far behind. I think 38.3% is the most current number as of April 5th. So again, what are your thoughts just seeing that chart there, Jamie?
Yeah, the exact same thing, right? There's been a drop of almost 40% in completions year over year from the same time a year ago, and that's just it's interesting to look at. And again, I think it helps with solidarity, but it's almost Apple. Like, we're probably not going to, hopefully, not see this again. Hopefully, this is a 1 year shift, and then everything will come back to normal gradually. But it is a shocking number, just knowing, like, there have been over a million completions. This isn't a small sample. This is a lot. So yeah, it's staggering, I would say.
Absolutely. And, we're looking at the percentage of completions, but I think it'll be interesting to pair this with other data later this year and look at this in terms of the actual enrollment for fall and see, I think we're going to see kind of a cascading ripple effect of this very chart through the other aggregate numbers that we monitor around this industry. So that's going to be something to look for. Scrolling a little bit further down just the home page, the NCAN has published a couple of selected characteristics in FAFSA completions year over year, and a couple of really great charts that are looking at the difference in FAFSA completions year over year by school income level, by schools, by their percentage of students of color, and their percentage by geographic locale. So again, seeing that this issue is also disproportional. While it is affecting everyone, it is affecting students that are arguably more vulnerable in greater numbers. So we see that the percentage change year over year for high income schools is actually only 34%, while low income schools are all the way at 44% year over year, down year over year. So low income schools seeing a disproportional effect. Of course, when those average out, you see that it sits at around 40%, little less than 40 at this point, but low-income schools being disproportionately affected. And that same percentage affecting students by their percentage of students of color. So schools with a high minority percentage also affected with a 44.3% change year over year, with low minority schools only seeing a 34.2% change year over year. What do you make of that, Jamie?
Yeah, it's just extremely unfortunate. We've already talked about in previous episodes the changes in DII reporting and using race and ethnicity for admission processes, and what that's going to do for the schools also that are reinstating required testing, and how that is the group that struggles the most as well. And here we have just another compounding issues, making it more difficult for low-income, minority, and then looking over at the geographic location, students from very urban areas, making it harder for them to get into school, and then to make sure that it's paid for. So all these barriers stacking up, it's very self-defeating for somebody who has to keep running into these.
Right, and I mean, we've talked about how a huge barrier is simply just funding and resources and personnel available at these high schools, academic advisors, folks that do test preparedness courses, all of that compounding to make the landscape of getting into college, getting aid, just that much harder for folk that are on the lower end of resourcing.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the main page of the dashboard that you log into, and there's so other many ways to break it down, but this gives, I think, a really good representation of what's actually happening here. If you look at it more globally, even though it is broken down to some subpopulations, this is very telling.
And just to mention the numbers by geographic locale as well, schools within cities are down 41.9% year over year, where rural, suburb, and town-based schools are down roughly like 36-37%. So again, a disparity there as well.
I would love to see the classification. What's the difference between a town, a suburb, and then when does it become a city? I know those definitions are here somewhere, but usually that's city, rural, or suburb. Throwing town in there is interesting. I think that's usually either lumped into a suburb or rural.
Hey, it's Mallory. Exciting news. I'm hosting the Engage Summit in Raleigh on June 25th and 26th, and I'd love to meet you there. Together, we'll dive into the mind of the modern student, what fires them up, how they interact, and what they expect in today's digital age, and how tools like AI help put them in the driver's seat of their education. We have some terrific speakers, including our closing keynote, New York Times best-selling author Jeff Selingo. Sessions will dig into practical ideas and innovative strategies to get your team more student-centered and ready to adopt AI. And many of your favorite Enrollify hosts are presenting too, like Jamie Hunt, Jenny Lee Fowler, and Brian Gross. Use the discount code Enrollify50 for an extra $50 off your registration. Learn more and register at engage.element451.com. We can't wait to see you there.
Right. And again, this data is coming from the Department of Education, and so some of their definitions are available on their public data site. Again, you can go straight to the Department of Education if you didn't know, and download this data as a CSV or as a PDF. And start to sort of visualize it yourself. And that, again, is what the National College Attainment Network has done here. It has simply just been pulling that aggregate data, taking the definitions that the DOE provides and then surfacing that as opposed to in its sort of raw aggregate form rather into a dashboard. But that's a really that's a transition point for us there. We could talk just about the data product that is this dashboard. Again, there's a lot of publicly available data that we can use to understand the nature of our industry, but it is sometimes really difficult to get insights out of that data, and so that's what this dashboard is helping us all do. Again, downloading this data from the Department of Education and then probably storing it on some sort of server. Maybe it's local to the NCAN. It also could be a cloud server. That's where a lot of aggregate data or data for the purposes of insights and reporting and analytics is stored. And that's mainly, again, a cloud storage solution is mainly used for these sort of visualizations so that data loads quicker when the dashboard is loaded by the end user. So if you're closer in proximity to the server where the data is, which is possible through cloud computing, you'll just get a faster load time because it doesn't have to travel as far to get to you. But again, the other thing to point out here is that this dashboard is made on Tableau, which is, I believe, is it open source?
Yeah, you can use Tableau. There are certainly free and paid versions, but this is a great visualization tool. In times that we've talked about other data tools, this is a great one that anybody, I think, can jump into and use some data to make some meaningful visuals.
Right. Yeah. And I think it probably offers the most sophisticated suite of visualization options and of like structuring. There's some dashboard options like Google's Looker that are a little bit more user friendly for folks that might not be as experienced in building dashboards. But Tableau, I think, offers the most like flexibility and customization when it comes to the way to construct your visuals and construct your report. So something to keep in mind there. They also have really robust hover and pop-up options. So I'm just looking at one right now. You know, I was looking as you were mentioning the definition of town and city. I was hovering over some of those bars to look at definitions there, trying to find that. But again, a really robust pop-up there to give you that definition as you hover over the different components of the dashboard. Is there anything else about the dashboard that sticks out to you, Jamie?
Yeah, I think in addition to this home screen, there are just so many ways to break down the data that I think is useful. Next week, we're going to talk about making data-driven decisions, and data like this is a great way to do that. You can look it up and compare different high schools to each other, different states. You can view that in a table, in a heat map, in a scatter plot. Like there are so many ways to visualize and make all this data useful in this dashboard. I think it's a great representation of if you do want to make those data-driven decisions, there are resources out there that can make it immediate for you. You can do this now without having to do any calculations of your own. You can log in here and look at all the high schools. If you're a college admissions office that you recruit from, what does that look like for those high schools or the states you focus on? So the breakdowns in here are just wonderful at being able to get the data you want quickly.
So some homework for you if you're interested in digging into this dashboard a little bit further. Definitely look up your state on the state profile tab, which is the second one in the list as I see it today. It might change in the future. I know that they're kind of modifying it as different types of data become available. I know they recently switched from FAFSA completions to FAFSA submissions. So something to take a look at there. You can also look up, they have a high school lookup, so you can filter that by state and by the high schools that you potentially recruit from, just to get a sense of that. So really helpful there. Have a look at the state of the high schools that you service and the high schools that you recruit from.
You can sort by congressional districts or all the schools within your county, your city, or your school district. There's so many ways to break this down. It's phenomenal. And you can choose to group the data by any of those as well, so that you can see if you're just interested in the political side of this. What are the congressional districts doing as far as submission, and where can we shift efforts to make this more effective?
Okay, well, I think that'll wrap us up for today. A quick one today, but looking at this really powerful data tool. Again, thanks to the National College Attainment Network for making this public and for doing the legwork to get this data available to all of us in the industry to benefit from.
This is a wonderful tool, and I can't overemphasize how much is in there and how many insights are to be gleaned for those that are interested, and other tools like this are out here for other data sets. So don't feel like you're handcuffed if you don't have the data in your pocket. Somebody else is probably working with it. So it just takes some looking. And we also love to look at how we can use artificial intelligence in these scenarios. Timothy, what's a good way you could use this data or dashboard with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you caught a recent webinar through Enrollify with me and Jamie, we talked about using ChatGPT Plus as a way to do your own data analysis. So maybe another bit of homework for you is to either download this dashboard as a PDF, which you can do, I believe, in the top right corner of the dashboard. Might be a little tricky to find on the embed, but scroll around and you should see a download button. Or go straight to the Department of Ed and download this data for yourself and bring it over into ChatGPT if you've got a Plus account. Using ChatGPT 4 or the GPT-4 model in your chat, you can add files to that chat. Throw that dashboard PDF in there, or throw the raw data that you download from the Department of Ed in there, and just ask for some analysis. I asked for just like some highlights from the report, and it gave me a breakdown of the homepage. But again, you can use ChatGPT to dig into this yourself if you've got specific questions that might not be answered by the dashboard. You can start to ask those in ChatGPT. Really powerful tool to point out there.
Yeah, combining multiple tools for big takeaways. I like it.
The EduData podcast is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month. We've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional.
Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Artis Cadu, Dustin Ramsdale, Jeremy Tiers, and so many of your other favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.